welcome to this video about playing contrapuntal jazz piano. Before we dive in, let's just take a moment to talk about what I mean when I say contrapuntal jazz piano. If I were to play a standard with the traditional bass and drums and left hand setup, it might sound something like this. If I would play more contrapuntally, it might sound like this. So you see, with the contrapuntal approach, what's happening is that I am kind of going away from voicings and thinking more about voices. And what that does is gives the music a kind of a three-dimensionality that you might not get otherwise. Not that there's anything wrong with the traditional approach. I think both approaches are great, but this contrapuntal thing can be a fun little weapon to pull out at different times. In order to wake up that contrapuntal feeling, I developed a little exercise that will help jumpstart that for you. The first thing we're going to do is to separate our hands into two sides. So my left hand will be a bottom and a top, and my right hand can also have the same kind of functionality. Step number one, pick a standard that you're pretty comfortable on. So in this case, I'll use the same standard I just played, and I'm going to play the bass in the left hand and the melody in the right hand. After you do that and you feel comfortable with that, now we're going to get to the contrapuntal part. We're going to do the same thing we just did, but we're going to do it in one hand. The left hand, the bottom of the left hand is going to play the bass, and the top of the right hand is going to play the melody. It should sound something like this. And that is going to be the first step into getting the contrapuntal sound. Now, as you noticed, I am sometimes making adjustments in the melodies, little delays, or playing ahead in the bass or behind in the bass, and the same for the melody. So when you do this, just, sometimes you have to compensate for things not being totally comfortable in the hand, and that's okay as long as you stay in time. So for the second version of this exercise, I'm going to play the bass in the bottom of my left hand again, but then in the top part of my left hand, instead of the melody, I'll play some chord tones, mostly concentrating on thirds and sevenths. After you get comfortable with that, what you can start to do, if you want, is to improvise around those chord tones in the upper part of the hand. So it's nothing fancy, but just instead of playing perhaps the third, I might start one note next to the third and move up to the third, or play a little chromatic tone before I play the third, or anything that kind of you can think of in the moment. The main thing is to do it in your comfort level. Keep it loose and fun. And if you feel like a particular part is giving you a hard time with the fingering, you can always stop and go back and practice what you improvised. Now for the final version of this exercise, we're going to do the same thing we were doing in the left hand before, but this time we're going to intersperse it with some lines in the right hand. If you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry. One of the tricks here is that not everything has to be happening at the same time. You're still going to get the three-dimensionality even if you stagger the voices, and I recommend doing that in the beginning so you don't get overwhelmed. So here's me doing the bass in the bottom of the left hand, some very light chord tones in the upper part of the left hand, and interspersing it with some lines in the right hand. Believe it or not, that is enough to get you going, getting the contrapuntal feeling started, and there's a lot to explore there. Just getting used to having different voices do different things and balancing the complexity of it and the density of it. So this would be a good place to start. For the bonus round, we're going to bust things wide open. If you've done the exercise, you've gotten a little bit of the feeling of what it's like to conceive of the different voices in your hands. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start to have fun with those voices by changing up some of the roles. So for example, when I was doing the exercise, I was mostly playing eighth note lines in the upper voice, but the bottom two voices were playing whole notes and half notes and much less rhythmically. So if I want, I can actually switch up those roles. Let me see if I can allow each voice to have its own turn playing eighth notes while the other voices are being more supportive, playing a little bit less rhythmically. Etc., etc. That type of eighth note playing can be fun, and passing it around and back and forth can be kind of challenging and sound impressive, but it doesn't have to be that fancy to have that contrapuntal effect. The trick is assign different roles to different voices and you're going to get a lot of three-dimensionality. If you really want to make yourself crazy, do the same exercises you did in the left hand with the right hand, and now all of a sudden you have another voice ready to go. So the top of the right hand is a voice, the bottom of the right hand is a voice, top of the left hand and the bottom of the left hand. Then you can go through all the different games and exercises you can think of, assigning them to 4 voices instead of 3. Okay, hope that was helpful and hope that gets you started in your contrapuntal journey. Thanks for checking out this video and see you next time. Bye-bye.